All right. So we are just about live, and we are live. So welcome, guys. Tonight's an open discussion, so feel free to chime in during the chat. It is open. Just going over a few fights, a number of fights, really. All of them are happening before the end of this month. All of them, I feel, are going to have a little bit of impact on their division. Well, maybe, yeah, they're all fairly important fights. So we'll be going over all of them. All but one of these is in the UFC. Nothing from Bellator before the end of the month that's really going to make like an impact as far as, the division goes. Excuse me, but we'll see what's going on. So first fight up, I'll bring the picture up here real quick. Okay, so first fight up, one championship, a new era, is going down in Tokyo on, I believe, the 31st, last day of the month. It's Jingnan defending her 125-pound title against the 115-pound champion, Angela Lee. Big fight for one championship, big fight for the ladies' divisions over there. Xiong has, I believe she's defended her title, I want to say twice now, or at least once. Let me bring up the fight here real quick. So she's defended it twice after beating Tiffany Teo about just over a year ago. And Angela Lee is moving up in weight for the first time, probably to the weight class really that she belongs in. Going to be a big challenge for her. So let's look at the stats here. Xiong is older than Lee by about 9 years, 31 to 22. 5'5" to 5'4", so the size disparity, not really much of a difference in height there. As far as what they usually weigh at, don't know because it's one championship. Xiong is, both of these fighters, I believe, no, I'm sorry, they're not undefeated. Lee's 9-0, Xiong is 13-1. I believe she lost her first or second fight, and she's been on a tear since then. Her last 3 fights were the championship to Tiffany Teo. Then she beat, Laura Ballin. And then most recently she beat Samara Santos. That was about 6 months ago. Angela Lee won the title against Maia almost 3 years ago. Since then, she's been, she defended it against Jenny Juan, Estela Nunez, and then Mai Yamaguchi again. We got someone in chat. Mark Zima is asking, has Lee fought after her automobile accident? Yeah, she had one fight since that automobile accident. She was originally scheduled to fight Mai Yamaguchi in a rematch, and then she had to pull out because of the accident. And then she came back last year and defeated May in the rematch by unanimous decision. Only fighter to ever take Angela to decision, and that was twice. I think the key here for each of these fighters is they're going to have to work on, they're going to have to fight to their strength. For Lee, it's on the ground. Her stand-up is just not that good, and she's way too hittable. I think she needs to get the fight to the ground and maintain top control and work for submissions, because I don't see her doing well if she tries to stand and trade with Xiong. For Xiong, I think she's better off keeping it standing. Now, she is a very well-rounded fighter, but I think that Lee has the advantage on the ground, whereas Xiong has way better stand-up than Angela. She hits very strong. Angela has never fought someone that's hit as hard as her. The closest was Yamaguchi. And Xiong's punches are just very effective. They're not the cleanest punches. They're a little looping, but they find their mark. If you go back and watch Xiong's fight with Tiffany Teo for the championship, Tiffany Teo's face was looking like ground hamburger by the end of the fight. So I think Xiong should work to keep it standing. I believe in my preview video for that fight, I said it was going to be a decision. I don't see either of these two being able to finish each other. But man, each one of them is going to have to fight to their strengths, and they're going to have to fight perfectly, or as close to perfect as they can. But I'm going with the Panda Xiong Jingnan by unanimous decision. So next up, let me change the photo here real quick. So we're going to UFC on ESPN Plus number 6. That's going to take place on the 23rd, this coming weekend. We have Randa Markos versus Angela Hill. So, fix this camera, it keeps spinning. So we got Markos, who has finally managed to beat her win-loss streak in the UFC. She got a draw in her last fight versus Marina Rodriguez. And that was 5 months ago. Hill, meanwhile, has also bounced off between wins and losses for her past 5 fights. She's coming off a loss to Courtney Casey about 6 months ago. Let's see. Both these fighters are getting up there in age for female fighters. Markos is coming close to 34. Angela Hill just turned 31 a couple months ago. Markos is taller by about an inch. Of course, they're around the same weight. Tapology has the betting odds with Randa Markos at a plus 125 slight underdog, and Hill is minus 155. I think this could be a very interesting fight. It could also be an extremely boring fight. Markos has developed a weird striking style that has been somewhat effective for her. It's very herky-jerky looking. It has a weird rhythm to it, but it's somewhat worked for her. Hill, of course, is more traditional Muay Thai, kickboxer style. Of course, Markos is definitely, when it comes to the ground, Markos is definitely better on the ground. Hill has gotten better at defending at her takedown defense, and she's gotten better on the ground defensively, but she's never going to, be able to catch up to a lot of the other fighters on the ground. If this stays standing, I could see Hill taking it. If Markos fights to her strength on the ground, I can definitely see her winning. I do not see this fight ending inside the distance, though. Neither of these two are exactly known for their finishes. Markos' last 2 wins have been by decision, and so have Angela Hill. As far as who's beaten better competition, they're both around the same. I'm going to go with Randa Markos on this one. She finally beat the streak. No, you know what? I changed my mind. I think Hill's going to take this. I think she's been doing a lot better lately than Markos has. I mean, yeah, their records are about the same, but I just feel that Hill is the hungrier of the two. I think she's the one looking to really make some more noise in the UFC. Quiet Storm has just not lived up to the potential that we all saw in, the Ultimate Fighter. She's just been struggling since then. Whereas Hill came into the UFC, she had 1 professional win when she entered the Tough House. She did bad at first in the UFC, and then she went to Invicta. She reinvented herself, reinvented her career, or boosted it. She won the title there in a very excellent fight against I can't think of her name. The short little gangster chick. and had a very good defense against Kalini Medeiros. Granted, Hill has struggled since coming back to the UFC, but I mean, look at who those losses are to. The Jessica Andrade, no shame there, and she put up a good fight against Andrade. Nina Ansaroff, who's now in the top 5, no shame there. That was last year, or a little over a year ago. And then she lost to Courtney Casey. Courtney Casey is like the gatekeeping queen to the top 10 of the UFC. Souza, that's right. Thank you, Mark Zima. She beat Souza for the title in Invicta. Hill did. Yeah, there's no shame in losing to Courtney Casey. I mean, she's tough to beat. And that's why she's always around, between ranked 10 to 12. So I'm going to go with Hill on this one. I think she's just the hungrier fighter of the two. So next up, I got to change the picture again. Okay. So next up we have in the flyweight division, moving up a weight class, Alexis Davis versus Jennifer Maia. Maia, of course, is the former Invicta title holder. Alexis Davis, former bantamweight title challenger. So Davis is coming in 19-8. Maia's coming in 15-5-1. Looks like Davis is the slight underdog according to Tapology at -180. Maia is slight underdog at +145. Davis is the older fighter. She's 34.5 years old. Maia is 30.5 years old. And they're around the same size. No, let's see. Davis is a little bit taller, 5'6" to 5'4". And she has a 68-inch reach to Maia's 64-inch reach. This is, to me, this makes me think of a classic striker versus grappler fight. Davis, very good on the ground, very flexible, very, very crafty. Maia is more of a stand-up fighter. She trains, I think she still trains with shoot to box. Let me check here. Yeah, according to Tapology, she's still affiliated with Shoot a Box. So more of a Muay Thai, Brazilian Muay Thai style fighter. So again, this is, how it goes. Classic striker versus grappler. If it stays on the feet, Maia has a better chance. If it goes to the ground, you would tend to favor Davis. Where Davis is a little weak, though, is in her takedown game. Her takedowns could use a lot of polishing. She needs to train some more wrestling for those. Sorry. So I think Maia excels a little better in the clinch than Davis does, especially if she gets in the clinch, she can work on her strikes. Neither of these two are fast-paced fighters. I think this fight will be tend to have a slow pace, much like Maia's and Davis's both had fights against Liz Carmouche. Davis, I think, beat Carmouche a little over a year ago, whereas Maia lost to Liz Carmouche last year. Both of those came via way of decision. In Davis's case, she won a split decision. Neither of those fights were the most exciting either. They were fairly slow-paced, typical Liz Carmouche grinder fights. So if this stays standing, it could be Maia's night. If it goes to the ground, I see it being more of Davis's night. You have to favor, you kind of want to favor Davis, being someone who dropped down from bantamweight and has fought a lot stiffer competition, roughly, than Maia has. Although then again, you know, Maia had a nice, really nice streak going coming into the UFC. I mean, Vanessa Porto, Roxy Modafferi, Agnieszka Niedzwiedz. Then she ran into Liz Carmouche, who is just going to bring every night to a screeching halt. I think my pick here is Maia by decision. Although it could easily go to Davis. So, whoever you want on that one. Next up, way more interesting fight. Okay, Maycee Barber versus J.J. Aldrich. This is going to be in a flyweight division. Barber moving up to flyweight because, you know, she missed weight last time, or, well, she made it on the second try, but she missed weight on the first try. And frankly, she's missed weight a few times in her career. Why Aldrich is moving up to fight her, I don't know. I mean, I don't watch too many interviews with her or anything. I don't know if she's talked about having weight troubles or not. Maybe it's just because the UFC asked her to. Frankly, I was hoping to see Barber against, you know, someone more established in the flyweight division. At least has actually had fights at flyweight before. So this is a fight, to me, that exemplifies someone who is very polished technically against someone who has skill but is super athletic and lets that dictate a lot of her fights. Aldrich has gotten a lot better technically as a fighter. I think she's really polished up her striking. She's still pretty good on the ground as well. But she's up against someone who is just probably going to be bigger than her coming into the fight, and a little bit younger, a little bit slightly less experienced, but is just like a natural born athlete in Barber. Let's look at the stats here. 7-2 Aldrich versus 6-0 Barber. Aldrich is the older by 6 years, 26 to 20. They're surprisingly the same height. And Aldrich, according to this, actually has a 2.5-inch reach advantage, 67.5 to 65 inches. So probably not going to be that much. I mean, not the size difference won't come into height-wise, but I do expect Barber to still be like a bigger, stronger like fighter. She's very strong. Barber's moderate favorite, minus 235. Aldrich is at plus 185 for you gamblers. So the big question here, can Aldrich's skill last her against the aggression and the athleticism of Barber? I think if all things were even, I would pick Aldrich. I mean, her striking is just technically better. I saw some holes in Barber's game against Hannah Cifers, even though she was beating Cifers. She was doing some things like, crossing her feet and when moving around, some other stuff. But she's on a roll. She's super competent. Perfect record. A lot of height behind her, which is making her even that much more confident. This is a hard one to pick for me. But I'm probably going to have to go with Barber. I'll be cheering for Aldrich, though. I think that Barber's hype is a little bit deserved, but I think she's getting a bit of a big head, honestly. I mean, yeah, she's confident, but it's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. And the way she's talking lately, she's very close to crossing that line, if she hasn't already. So, cheering for Aldrich, but picking Barber to win. So moving on, UFC on ESPN2. Let me switch the pictures up. Okay, so this will be UFC on the big ESPN channel. Second card for them. First fight's in the flyweight, another flyweight fight. Marina Moroz moving up in flyweight and facing the debuting Sabina Mazo. Mazo was the LFA champion, I think for all of one fight before she got signed. Let me see. Look this stat up real quick. Yep, she won the no, I'm sorry. She won the title and successfully defended it. So Sabina Mazo's coming in. She's undefeated, 6-0. Taking on the slightly more seasoned Moroz, who is 8-3. Moroz is coming in on a 2-fight skid. She lost to Carla Esparza by unanimous decision a little less than 2 years ago. And then 1 year ago, she fought Angela Hill and lost unanimous decision. So this could be it for Moroz, who has been bouncing around from gym to gym. She hasn't had a very steady training life. It seems like every fight she moves camp lately, if you follow her on social media. Maza is coming in on undefeated record, of course. She defeated, her last 2 fights, she defeated Shannon Sin by unanimous decision 10 months ago. That was when she won the LFA title. And then she successfully defended it against Karolina. That was about 3 months ago. I've never actually seen any of Mazo's fights in full. I've seen some clips. I know she's a good kickboxer. Moroz is more of straight up boxer. I think this move up in weight could be good for Moroz. She hasn't been doing so good down at strawweight, and I know that she cuts a lot because she comes in looking drained every time. She keeps her body very lean. So this could be a good move for her, but I think that she's being set up to lose because, tell you what, ever since she had that win versus Joanne Calderwood, she had that one good win, and then all of her fights since then have been lackluster. She lost the decision to Valerie Letourneau. She had a couple wins against Christina Stansu and Danielle Taylor. Extremely boring fights. And then she lost some boring fights to Esparza and Angela Hill. I think that the UFC is probably fed up with Moroz at this point, and they're looking for a reason to get rid of her while also building up Mazo. So, and I think this is a good, this was actually some smart matchmaking for them. Mazo don't have any odds for this fight, but I would, you got to favor Mazo, just the hype she's coming in with, the way she wins fights. She has a couple knockouts, I believe. Yeah. She has 2 straight knockouts by head kick in the last couple of years. So she's coming in very, very good. A lot of some legitimate hype behind her. So I'm gonna have to go with Mazo on this one. I think she's just gonna outstrike Marina Moroz, possibly even finish her. Not gonna bet on a finish though, but it would not surprise me. So moving along, we're gonna go back down to strawweight. So we're going to, back down to strawweight. Alexis Grasso versus Marina Rodriguez. Should be an interesting matchup. So we got Alexa Grasso coming from Mexico with the boxing background. Rodriguez being the Brazilian. She's coming in with a Muay Thai background. Who does she train with? Don't recognize any of those. Grasso's coming in 10-2. She's coming in off a submission loss to Tatiana Suarez about 9 months ago. Hasn't fought since then. I think she had some injuries. Whereas Rodriguez coming off a draw in her UFC debut to Randa Markos. Before that, she had I think she had she had a perfect 10-0 record before then. Kind of similar to Grasso when Grasso entered the UFC. But that draw probably hurt her a little bit. So we have boxer versus Muay Thai. Let's see. Look at the other stats. So Rodriguez is the older fighter. I thought she was younger than that, but she'll be just shy of her 32nd birthday at the time of the fight. Grasso's about 25 and a half years old. Rodriguez is the slightly taller fighter, 5'7" to 5'5". But according to Tapology, Grasso has a 1 inch longer reach, so you're looking at more wider shoulders probably. You know, Grasso's, I'll admit, disclaimer here, Grasso's one of my favorite fighters, but even I can admit that she hasn't shown the same promise in the UFC that she did back in Invicta. I think a lot of people expected her to, you know, finish Heather Clark. She had Heather Clark hurt at one point and then kind of peeled back, which was disappointing. I don't know if she would have gotten to finish anyway, because Heather Clark's never been finished. And then, of course, she lost to Felice Herrig, dropped a decision in a fight where she just didn't look like herself. You know, she hasn't been fighting like the Alexa Grasso we all expect her to. And then she won against Markos, and then before the submission to Tatiana Suarez, which, hey, that's not a big deal. I mean, anymore, losing to Suarez like that. Rodriguez, on the other hand, she was brought in. She scored a TKO over Maria Oliveira in the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series. I mean, she made Oliveira verbally tap. She waved off the fight in the middle of it. It was a pretty cool finish. Then, of course, she didn't look so good against Markos, but it's hard for fighters to look good against random Markos. I mean, that's the kind of fighter Markos is. She makes everyone look less than great against her. So certainly no shame in that. I mean, Markos was probably the most experienced fighter Rodriguez had faced up to that point. I mean, at least against higher level competition. I mean, she does have some wins over Samara Santos and, you know, the win over Oliveira. And those fighters all had decent records, but they were against, you know, lesser competition too. I think Grasso is also a step up, much like Randa Markos was, but it's hard to tell how much of a step up at this point. I'd like to see Grasso be more aggressive in this fight. She hasn't been as aggressive as she used to be, and I think that's actually hurt her a lot. I think she does better when she's more aggressive. I think Rodriguez is going to come in a little more aggressive than she did her last fight. Question is, how is that going to work against Grasso, and how will Grasso actually show up against Rodriguez? I mean, are we going to see vintage Invicta style Grasso, or are we going to see UFC try not to lose Alexa Grasso? I'm hoping we see vintage Invicta style Alexa, because I miss that. I miss that Alexa. When she fights the way she did in Invicta, she can beat just about anybody. So I'm hoping that shows up. As far as who I'm picking to win this fight, I am going to go with Grasso. Let my emotions go in this one. But if Grasso loses this one, she needs to do something, because something with her camp or in her training, because then she'll be on a 2-fight skid, and you know in the UFC, most fighters, they can get away with 2 losses, but you can't get away with 3. Well, unless you're Colin Curran, you can get away with 3. But even she eventually got the X. So I'm going to go with Grasso by decision. But I'm hoping and praying that, the vintage Invicta, very violent, very aggressive Alexa Grasso shows up. So we're going to go up to the last fight we're going to talk about tonight. So we're staying in the strawweight division, I believe, for this one. I believe this is the co-main event. Yep, looks like the co-main event. Michelle Waterson versus Karolina Kolwalkiewicz. Very excited about this fight. Super excited. So we got Waterson. She's coming in on a 2-fight streak. 2 wins in a row. She's 16-6. She's taking on Kolwalkiewicz, who's 12-3, coming off a loss herself to, who was that to? Jessica Andrade. She got legit knocked out by Jessica Andrade. She just did not fight smart in that fight. And then she got hurt. She got hurt early, and then all fight IQ went out the window, and she was swinging punches with her head down, and it allowed Andrade to get the knockout. Waterson, meanwhile, coming in off some wins over Courtney Casey by split decision, and then she won a unanimous decision over Herrick. So that's a shared opponent for Waterson and Kolwalkiewicz. So I'm going to have to go watch those 2 fights some more later on and see how they each performed against Herrick there. Looking at the stats, they're the same age, 33 years old, same height, 5'3". Kolwalkiewicz has a slightly longer reach at 64 inches to 62 inches for Waterson. How this fight will play out should be interesting. Waterson is a better distance fighter. She likes to use those kicks. She likes to throw up those kicks a lot, usually lead leg style kicks. I think she's a better distance fighter than Kolwalkiewicz. Mark Zima is telling me Rose Namajunas is also a shared opponent. Good point, good point. Kolwalkiewicz is stronger in the clinch. She's stronger in close range. On the ground, you got to give a slight advantage to Waterson. She's very crafty on the ground. Kolwalkiewicz is more of a defensive grappler. As far as how they do on the ground against each other, should be interesting to watch, because Kolwalkiewicz has been on the ground and won on the ground versus some very good ground fighters, including Namajunas and Mizuki Inoue. Waterson did all right on the ground versus Casey and Herrick. Of course, we all remember the armbar against Jessica Penny a few years back. If it goes to the ground, I'll give it a slight advantage to Waterson. I expect this fight to mostly stay on the feet, though. Waterson doesn't have the greatest of takedowns. She mostly just throws the head and arm throw, which has become very predictable and boring and easily defended. So I don't see Kolwalkiewicz having a problem with that. Also, to get to that head and arm throw, she's going to have to go into the clinch with Kolwalkiewicz, which is going to be very dangerous for Michelle. Kolwalkiewicz has some nasty knees in the clinch. I think Waterson, if she tries to stay on the feet, she's going to want to try to keep that distance with those kicks. But she has to be careful because, when she lost to Rose, is because she overextended on a kick and didn't recover fast enough. which allowed her to get knocked out. Now, of course, Kolwalkiewicz doesn't throw too many kicks herself. I'm going to expect her to try to close range, get into the boxing range, and try to get into the clinch to land those knees. As far as who wins this fight, well, Waterson's has the slight streak going. Hopefully, I'm going to go with Waterson on this one. It's a gutsy pick. I mean, they're very close as far in ability. And I'd hate to see KK take another loss. Of course, I like both of these fighters. You know, I've been following them for years now. Waterson, I've been following her since, man, I remember when she fought in Strikeforce. I'm going to go with Waterson by decision. But I wouldn't be surprised to see this fight go either way. So that's it as far as the fights go. I got some time. I'm not going anywhere. So why don't we talk about the Invicta Phoenix Rising series. I'll bring up the list of fighters. So give me a second here. So first up we have Mizuki, who's coming in with 13-5 record. Mizuki has basically fought, you know, the who's who of the strawweights for Invicta. She's fought some B fighters that are now in the UFC, like Kolwalkiewicz. She's fought for the title in Invicta, coming up short to Jandiroba. Mizuki could very easily be a favorite in this tournament. One thing she struggled with lately is finishing opponents, though. Now, she has been working on her stand-up, though, at Serra-Longo, so it'll be interesting to see how she does. I think this will be her second fight with them. Be very interesting to see what, Ray Longo has planned for her for this fight. Also taking part is Janessa Mirandin, 10-2. Miranda is also another former title challenger in Invicta, also coming up short against Verna Jandiroba. Excuse me. Mirandin's pretty well-rounded. I think she's very strong on the ground, if I can remember properly. As far as competition level, I don't think she's fought as many high-level opponents as Mizuki has. But she still fought some good competition. As far as her chances in this tournament, I'd rank them as good as anybody else. Not one of my favorites, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, one thing that's great about this tournament format, anybody could walk away the winner here. Next up, Danielle Taylor coming in 10-4. So Taylor got the boot from the UFC, but came back with a very strong win in her Invicta debut back in December. She brought the dynamite back, finally. I even told her myself, I wasn't a fan before. Your performance tonight made me a fan. So hopefully she keeps up with that. And I think it'd be very smart of her to do this because, the first two fights are only going to be 5 minutes each. She needs to bring that dynamite to this. And Danielle has some power, She's those thick legs and that butt to generate some power in her hand. And when she lands it, man, she can mess her opponents up. She hasn't knocked anyone out in a while, but it could be coming. Next up is another UFC veteran, Juliana Lima, 9-5. Can't remember Lima's last fight. Lima is more of a grappler-style heavy fighter. Very slow, bit of a grinder. Not the most exciting style. She certainly has the potential to grind her way all the way to a win in this tournament. Hopefully that's not what she comes with in this one. Next up, we have the third UFC veteran, Kylan Curran, coming in at 4-6. Curran has been on a bad streak. Got released from the UFC. A lot of people thought it was a little late. Long time coming. No, she's very decently good athlete. It's just she has just not been able to put it all together in her career. You'd think though that with this is actually a good tournament. This tournament's a good chance for her to come up and actually get back. Yeah, if she wins, she'll have a winning record again. So you got to think that she's coming in with a lot of momentum, a lot of desire. Next up, Brianna Van Buren, 5-2. She came in and defeated, what was her name? And Invicta 33. Fought an opponent who missed weight by almost 10 pounds. Did not care. She said, I'll fight her anyway. Came in, won the fight, did it very well, was very impressive in that performance. I'm going to have to watch some more fights of hers, though, because I'm not sure how good she'll match up with everyone else. Next up, Sharon Jacobson, 5-4. Of course, Jacobson, if you watched Invicta 33, we all remember she was winning the entire fight until like the last 15 to 25 seconds. Made a mistake, threw a suplex, did not control it well enough. It cost her. She lost by armbar. You know, Jacobson is one of these fighters that she's very good, great wrestling, but she just has some brain farts sometimes. I mean, that suplex was a great example of them. Although being as good of a wrestler as she is, and looking at some of the opponents on this card, that could easily take her all the way in this tournament. I would say a good, strong wrestling game is it's definitely an advantage to have in a tournament like this. You can easily control your way all the way to the finals and come out on top. So Jacobson is probably one of the favorites. I'd say she's one of the favorites to win. Maybe not the favorite, but just, I mean, her ground game is so good, as long as she's thinking right, that she could easily pull off this win. Last up, Suna David's daughter, 3-0. Haven't seen David's daughter in a while. Glad to have her back. She is by far the least experienced fighter on this card, but don't let that fool you, man. This girl is tough, and she's tough. She's aggressive, very skilled. She trains out of, I want to say, the Mjolnir gym in Iceland. She's definitely the underdog in this one. Possibly, I'm going to say she's actually the dark horse to win this tournament. Would I put money on it? No. But I just think that she has all the skills. She just doesn't have the experience. But this tournament could easily get her that experience. And plus, when you're the least experienced fighter in the field, a lot of people are going to be counting you out. That could include the potential opponents. So she could easily come in. Everyone's going to underestimate her, and then she'll come in and just blow them all away. It's very possible. So it's actually a very interesting, very intriguing field. I'm excited for this tournament. So the first round, quarterfinals, 5-minute round. You got to do what you can in 5 minutes. Second, semifinals, also 5-minute round. Again, you got to do what you can in that 5 minutes. And what makes this the quarterfinals the most interesting is that there's going to be finishing bonuses for every round. But in the first round, the quarterfinals, the fighter with the fastest finish gets to choose their opponent in the semifinals. So let's say you get a 30-second knockout. And you get the fastest finish. you get to choose who you fight in the next round. You could let's say there's another fighter that has a straight up 5-minute war. I mean, just a battle to win their fight. Logic tells you, hey, I'm going to take that weakest fighter that seems the most exhausted, because that's an easier path to the finals. So definitely even more of an incentive to get a finish. I mean, if a money bonus ain't enough, the chance to pick your opponent, who you'll face next, is an even bigger incentive. And the same thing goes, well, in the semifinals, again, finishing bonuses. 5 minutes. 5 minutes to do whatever you can. Again, the money should be the incentive to try to get that finish. Plus, the faster you finish, the more rest time you have before the finals. And then, of course, the finals is going to be 3 5-minute rounds. And, you know, if you've ever watched a one-night tournament, there haven't been too many in a long time. But you just never know what's going to happen with these one-night tournaments. They're so much fun. I'm very excited about this. Well, guys, that's about all I really have. I didn't even plan on going this long. But, you know, March, for a few weeks left, is going to have some exciting fights. The fights I'm most looking forward to, Grasso Rodriguez, Waterson Kolwalkiewicz, and Xiong versus Lee. I think those are the fights to keep an eye on. Xiong versus Lee is one championship that's going to be on Bleacher Report Live, BR Live if you're in the US, or you can use a VPN and watch it on the One Super app. Of course, the UFC on ESPN Plus 6 is going to be on ESPN Plus, and then UFC on ESPN 2 is on ESPN if you're in the US. If you're outside the US, I don't know what kind of deals you're going to have. I think there's one more Combate event this month that's going to have a couple female fights. We'll probably be doing some live coverage for that. And there's some Bellator, 2 more Bellator events this month that also have female fights, but nothing like really spectacular that really stood out. Marina is making her debut. She's a Sambo world champ. So that should be interesting. So, and that's going to be at featherweight, I think, too, because, yeah, she used to fight at bantamweight, but in the Bellator, she'll have to move up to featherweight. So, guys, that's about all I have. Thanks for watching. Great couple weeks of fights to look forward to. Don't know what else to say. Subscribe to WMMA now, the best, fastest growing women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Guys, have a good night.